Everyone. My name is Sharon Stroy. I am the Director of Public Engagement in the School of Public Affairs and Administration, and I want to welcome you to our Black History Month presentation. We are also celebrating 15 years that the School of Public Affairs and Administration has been in existence, as well as 75 years that Rutgers University Newark has been a part of the Rutgers University system. In the midst of the COVID pandemic and the continued unrest that is going on in the country, this particular month signifies even the more importance of highlighting the diversity of people. Why diversity is important, why everybody's experiences, career trajectories, and roadmaps are crucial to the conversation. Tonight, you'll get a chance to hear from two of our faculty members this evening. However, on behalf of Dean Charles Minifield, who is scheduled to join us this evening, unfortunately, Dean Minifield was delayed because of weather in Mississippi. And because of that delay, he is currently on a flight right now on his way back to New Jersey after being delayed for a few days. I felt it was important for him to ensure that he makes his flight, that he stays safe, and that he returns to New Jersey and to his stewardship as the dean of SPAA safe and sound. He did share a video, but before we get to the video, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Wendy Nicholson. Wendy Nicholson is the moderator for this evening's presentation. Wendy is a second year doctoral student in the School of Public Affairs and Administration. She has spent most of her career working in areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening, Wendy Nicholson. Wendy?
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was a very brief introduction, which I appreciate. Welcome everyone to our first event. I am so proud and happy that everyone is here, and it is my pleasure to be your moderator tonight as we highlight some of our own heroes and sheroes. I don't think we do that enough. I truly believe that people should get their roses while they can enjoy them. So I'm happy that we're able to do that tonight. So what I would like to do is introduce our three panelists, two of whom are present with us, and then we'll have an opportunity to view Dean Menifield's video before we speak to Dr. Hill and Dr. Charles. So, Dr. Diane Hill is the Assistant Chancellor for University Community Partnerships at Rutgers University Newark and has over 30 years experience in various leadership positions, including as the administrator of the Office of University Community Partnerships, as the co-director for African American Alzheimer's Brain Health Initiative, and as chairperson of University Hospitals Community Oversight Board. Dr. Hill has successfully brokered sustainable partnerships with a broad spectrum of representatives from state and local officials, including the Senior Advisor to the Governor for Faith, Diversity, Urban, and Regional Growth, the New Jersey Department of Health Office of Minority Health, and the New Jersey Department of Human Services. Dr. Hill serves as a faculty member in the School of Public Affairs and Administration and is a core faculty member with Rutgers Institute for Global Health. Her scholarly work predominantly focuses on building strong, healthy urban communities, developing models to advance community engagement in higher education with an emphasis on urban university community partnerships, advancing healthcare equity and social justice, and improving urban education engagement demonstration models. Good evening, Dr. Hill.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy.
Secondly, we have Dr. Cleopatra Charles, who is an associate professor in the School of Public Affairs and Administration at Rutgers University Newark, where she teaches graduate courses about government and nonprofit budgeting and financial management. She is a public budgeting scholar whose research focuses on financial management and fiscal policy issues. More recently, her research has focused on nonprofit organizations and the relationship between governance decisions and financial preparedness in dealing with adverse circumstances. Her work has been published in a number of scholarly outlets, including Public Budgeting and Finance, American Review of Public Administration, Nonprofit Management and Leadership, and Public Performance and Management Review. And good evening to you, Dr. Charles.
Good evening, Wendy.
Lastly, we have Dr. Charles Mannerfield, who's Dean of the School of Public Affairs Administration at Rutgers Newark. His research interests lie primarily in the areas of budgeting and financial management, public health and welfare, and minority politics. He has authored 2 books on minority politics and 2 books on public budgeting and financial management. He is a fellow in the National Academy of Public Administration and an award-winning teacher. He is a former Ronald E. McNair Scholar, and in spring 2016, he won the Missouri University Faculty Achievement Award in Diversity. Dr. Menifield is also editor-in-chief of the Journal of Public Management and Social Policy, which is the official journal of COMPA. And he is the principal author of PAR's second most downloaded article entitled, "Do White Law Enforcement Officers Target Minority Suspects?" Dr. Menifield has a strong record of national leadership roles in public affairs administration and is widely respected for his scholarship on budgeting and financial management, public health, welfare, and the participation of underrepresented groups in politics. He has served on the Executive Council of the Network of Schools of Public Policy Affairs and Administration, as president of the International Conference on Local Government, and on editorial boards, including the Journal of Public Budgeting, Accounting, and Financial Management, Journal of Health and Human Services Administration, and the Ralph Bunche Journal of Public Affairs. And in his absence, we say good evening to Dr. Minifield as well. And so we're going to start with Dr. Minifield's video so that he can still be a part of our celebration this evening. So if we can go ahead and get that up, that would be awesome.
Hello, SPAA family. First, let me begin by thanking you for attending our event. I apologize for not being here, quote unquote, in person virtually, but the weather here in Memphis decided to keep me here for a few more days. Excuse me. Sharon sent me the questions, so I decided to go ahead and make a recording, and I'm going to go through the questions and answer them one by one. The first question is, what was your motivating factor for selecting a career in the academy pursuing public administration? I began my career as, well, first, I have a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's in public administration, and my PhD is in political science. I started my career in pretty much teaching political science courses in one budgeting course. And I figured out pretty early on that the political science stuff was useful, but it wasn't really doing anything to help society. So the direct answer to this question is my main motivating factor was my desire to help people. And I did not feel like my political science degree was doing it. So the first 2 jobs that I had were more or less political science jobs. When I got tenure in 2001, I promptly resigned, moved to DC to work at the Congressional Budget Office doing research in healthcare. After that, I decided I wasn't going to go back to a political science department. So I got a job at the University of Memphis in a public administration program, and then went to Missouri into the School of Public Administration, and hence I became a fully blown public administration professor. And of course, now that I'm in SPAA, it takes it, the full circle. So I think that public administration work has a lot more utility in moving the needle for society forward. We do a lot of work that has some practical applications, and I think that's a good thing. I did not have that same sensation when I was in the political science departments. The second question is there a person that served as a mentor for your career trajectory? If yes, who, and what was their impact on your life, career, etc.? I've had mentors throughout my career, starting in high school, moving forward. In college, I had a professor who was a Harvard-educated sociologist who really was my first academic mentor. And he strongly encouraged me to go to the University of Missouri, told me why. And, as the story goes, of course, I went there. He connected me with a gentleman there who ultimately recruited me there. And, it was a great decision. After I got the PhD, I continued to maintain some great mentors, Dr. Bart Wexler at the University of Missouri, Dr. John Bartle at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. He's also been a great mentor. And, a mentor serves a variety of roles. One of the things that they do is, they can provide you career guidance. They can just give you suggestions on things that you can apply for, etc. In my case, these people position me to get positions that basically aided my career. John Bartle really helped me in the Association for Budget and Financial Management. At some point, I became the chair of that organization, and getting that kind of exposure really does help you to move forward, particularly when positions become available, because people know you. You get leadership skills along the way, and the list goes on and on. So there's no substitute for having a good mentor, and I am forever grateful for them. And there are many other people, but those definitely played some very critical roles at some important times in my life. The third question is, what type of advice would you give someone interested in pursuing a career in higher education? Higher education is one of the most fulfilling positions in the country. Now, I'm assuming this means higher education in public administration. We're a part of a group of people that I would consider unsung heroes. There's no flash often to our jobs, but we do a lot that moves the needle. I was doing some research, and I found that people that you would know, former CIA director David Petraeus, has an MPA. Bill O'Reilly, a journalist, has an MPA. We have graduates that lead major organizations. Natasha Hemmings, she has her MPA from SPAA. Carlos Valentin at Aspira. So, there's lots and lots of them all over the state of New Jersey and in Newark who, have done well. So pursuing a career in a higher education degree in public administration is not a bad decision for a variety of reasons. Now, this specifically says, what advice would I give you? So my advice is this. If you're going to pursue a degree in public administration, you should decide as quickly as you can what you want to do with that degree. Which means once you make the decision, you can start doing things to facilitate the decision. So let's just say I'm interested in healthcare administration. That means as soon as I can, I should try to get an internship at a healthcare facility, or at least in healthcare area, when during that first summer. That experience alone will give you one step up the rung, so to speak. Of course, you're going to be taking classes in the healthcare area. The last piece is you have got to perform. Your goal is to have those professors that have taught you to say, Joe was the best, Sally was the best student I have ever taught. Natasha is the best writer that I have ever seen. That's how you want them to talk about you. And then they can go on to get some very specific things. This is the best paper that I've ever read in my life. Her oratory skills are, considerably above par. If the person can't say those sort of things about you, you haven't done enough. So think about that. You have to perform when you're in the classroom. And then the last question says, what is the future for SPAA? Well, the future for SPAA looks really bright, and we're in the future. We're already starting our future. We passed a strategic plan last fall. The faculty, the staff are really moving forward. We have a world-class faculty, we have a world-class staff, and we're continually working to improve upon those. So I think the strategic plan is solid, and it has given us everything that we need to really move us to the next level. Of course, we need more students, but once we implement some of those things, we're going to see more students. We're going to see the program offerings start to expand. We're going to see our behaviors in terms of community engagement. Those things are going to continue to expand. We really are doing a lot. Last year we started the EMPA back. We're now in the second year, and that program is going really strong. Our community engagement efforts have doubled in the last year, and I think this year is going to double even more. Our grant writing activities are up. So things are really looking bright for us. I mean, what better time to be a dean? So I'm very excited to be here, and I'm here for the ride. And it's only because of the faculty, the staff, and the students that I can say that this is working. So I'm not going to take credit for it because I'm just happen to be the person in charge. But really, the real work is done behind the scenes. So I give it to them. Thank you for having me again. Thank you for attending. I hope I didn't take too much time, and hopefully I will make it back to Newark safe and sound. Thank you for again coming to the event, and I do wish you the best. Take care.
See, it wasn't that bad. It's like he was here with us. I appreciate that. And he gave a lot of good information that I think we could all appreciate. One thing that struck me was the fact that he has different degrees and what he decided to do. In my day job, I do work in the career office at a college, and it's interesting how students always think that whatever degree they get, they have to stick there, and that's the only work that they can do. So to hear him say that he recognized that one degree he had wasn't going to give him what he wanted, and he made some other decisions, we can do that. We can make decisions to leverage our skills, abilities, and knowledge to frame and shape the life that we want. So now it's time to hear from our other two panelists, Dr. Charles and Dr. Hill. Dr. Minifield did mention some of the questions, and you're going to get the same questions. However, I'm going to take a little moderator privilege, and I might add a little something else in there that you have not heard. Nothing too difficult, but just to get a little bit more robust information. So you all can decide which order you want to answer the question. And the first question to the two of you: what was your motivating factor for selecting a career in the academy pursuing public administration?
Do you have a preference of who you want to start, Dr. Wendy? I'm calling you Dr. Wendy Nicholson.
I'll take it. I received that.
You are that. So I'll be glad to,
Sure, since you're already, your mic is open, go ahead.
Well, Dr. Nicholson, it sounds good, and I know it's already there. I first want to congratulate our Dean Menifield, for being the first African-American dean for the School of Public Affairs and Administration. That itself is phenomenal. And he's not here, but he is in spirit. And I say that because this is very important for Rutgers University, Newark, but more so important for the field of public administration. So thank you. And thank you, Dean Story. And I still call her Dean like all the other students, because we never move past the director or whatever. She is always going to be somebody's dean, because that's her characteristic of how she treats everyone and how she plays a role in their life. So thank you. And we all appreciate you. So when I think about the question, what was your motivating factor for selecting a career? And, particularly in public administration, I didn't select public administration. Public administration selected me. And that's a little different, because my journey was similar to the dean's journey. My background and my education is that I have my degrees in elementary ed, K through 8 certification, early childhood certification, special ed certification, and I also have a remedial development certificate. So I was in the whole concept of something that my mother taught me was education is your way out and is all of our way out as a family. So my mother used to say, if I have a third grade education and I could be a district leader and a community leader and meet with the mayors and council people and talk, what can you do if you even get a high school degree? So I want you all to pursue this. So that was part of the motivating factor for going into education, because I thought being a teacher was going to open up all the doors. And for being a teacher, to me, what I learned through that journey was that the teaching taught me what were the needs of my people in the community and helped me to understand what the needs were, which kind of pushed me into that public administration, which I didn't know at the time that that's what it was. I just knew that I wanted to be a service back to my community. I just knew that I had, from my upbringing and my history of my family coming to Newark in the 30s, that it was always taught to us that we had to give back once we received. And so I received through the educational opportunity fund program. It was the best experience and the best journey that anyone could have for me at that time, because that's where I started thinking about you have to really give back. And it was drilled down through that program that you're here because somebody paved the way. You're here because you're going to do something different in your community. You're here because you have to impact your community. And so that became part of the lesson that was taught early on from my mother and my father and other family members that kind of continued through the process. Through when I did, when I came to college, somebody said to me, you're valuable. You're going to be an asset. We believe in you. You don't have to have the money. We understand that your family is within an income bracket, but we believe enough in you to bring you in to this process because you're going to impact lives. And when people believe in you, when people give you that trust, when people impact your life that way, I think that's really why public administration chose me, because public administration is where you begin to change not just the lives through education, which I was in, but public administration changes the whole structure of lives.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Dr. Charles, 1 second before you begin, let me just remind our viewers that if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will have an opportunity to have Q&A with our participants at the end. Dr. Charles, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Wendy. So I think like most of us, I kind of fell into public administration and academia. I did not set out to become an academic. No one ever said to me, you should get a PhD. As a senior in high school, I was set on becoming a medical doctor. And in fact, my undergraduate degree is in biology. So after graduation, I got a job at the New York City Department of Health. And while I was there, my supervisor at the time was getting her MPA part-time at NYU. And I was speaking to her and she suggested that I look into getting my MPA if I wanted to move up the career ladder at Department of Health. At the time, I had no idea what public administration was, but I did some reading. I got to sit in on a class at Baruch College, and it really appealed to me what they were learning and what they were talking about in class. And so eventually I enrolled at Baruch College full-time. And I really enjoyed the courses, especially econ and budgeting. And I had always been good with math and I really like numbers. And these courses just came very easy to me. And I thought, I really like this thing. But I took another detour. After graduating with my MPA, I moved back to St. Lucia, which is where I am from initially. And I worked in the public sector for 2 years. And then I decided that it was time to go back. I felt like I needed to do something more. And so I enrolled in the Martin School at the University of Kentucky. And I chose the Martin School because it was one of the best places to study public budgeting and finance. And from there, after graduation, I took a postdoc. I did not enter the job market right after graduation. I took a postdoc position at NYU. And when that was done, I got on the job market and I got hired at Rutgers in 2010. I've been at Rutgers ever since. So it was my first job, got tenure there, and I'm still there. And that's how it happened.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. It's interesting how you as well did not follow one straight path to what you're doing, and you had different degrees. The fact is, education was still a part of it. So between the three of you, education obviously is always something very important to those who are trying to become experts in what they do. So I have a follow-up question for each of you, since we now understand how you came to the faculty profession and public administration. Can you describe for us your experiences as a person of color in public administration?
I guess I should go. Right. In public administration, for me, I would say in higher education, because public administration, as I indicated, I'm new a little bit in the last 5-10 years to public administration, because just starting to realize how it really was fitting into my career and into the work that I was doing. And that's what it really was, not knowing that, because sometimes you just do things, you fall into it. You fall into community building, you fall into these network opportunities, and you look for what I call divine intervention opportunities, and you connect. And I knew that I was in a place and space where I wanted to do something different and change lives. So that's why the education piece was there, but it was from the womb. And so then I would say, well, what comes after that? After you do that and you have someone in there struggling through this piece, what comes next? And it was, you have to change some of these structural dynamics that are going on. You have to look at what really is creating these systems that create the issue. So when I think about where we're going and how we get there, I really think, Doctor, that part of it was as we work through this journey and this piece, that part of it is that at public administration and higher education, and some of the things that I ran into them early on. I was an educational opportunity fund student. I entered into a space and place that was very, very racist and judgmental. We were students that came in, and because we may have certain financial needs, those needs were sometimes taken that you have so many other needs. Well, they are, but it doesn't mean that academically we're always in some of our systems closing the gap. That's not new. It means that we work a little harder. But what it didn't mean was that we were the racism, the isms that were there because of the perceptions that still exist in our communities about our kids, about us. And so I was one of those that perception existed because I came in as educational opportunity fund student. But I also, and we'll get to that question, have people that kind of counted that all the time and said, no, you're going to be, you are, you will. They used all of these affirmations and taught us motivation. And so public administration to me, when I look at it and I say, okay, what are the isms there? It's not so much within the context of the schools, because that's higher ed itself. Look at how many people of color are in faculty positions. Look into most recently, even at Rutgers University, Newark, in the heart of the city of Newark, that they were all deans, that none of them looked like any of us. They were all males. And so those things existed. Okay, so how do we continue to break down those structural barriers was something that we all have to look at. But when I think about encountering racism or the isms, it was not just in public administration. It exists in the fabric of higher education when you look across, whether it's the state or nationally. You just have to look and see how many presidents, how many women, how many people of color. And then you get those figures and you know that it's there. So I experienced it early on in higher education. I experienced it in classes that I was in. I experienced it with going for internships and positions. I experienced it with faculty. And then even we still experience it with faculty because we don't coming into public administration or anything in higher ed. We do not always have the connections or mentors that are there before us to help us and pull us along or tell us what we didn't know, because I didn't sit down at my table and talk about higher ed, except for you're going to pass these classes and do what you need to do. We didn't have the conversations that people who have been doing this for generations have at their dinner table. So for us, it was, I knew what I was dealing with when I walked into, and my first college and my experience was Caldwell College. It's all females. It was 13 of us that looked like me that came into the college that was there. And so I knew what I was up against when I had the opportunity to not only go to college, but also to come into higher ed.
Dr. Charles?
Okay, so I am a Black immigrant. I did not grow up in the United States, and I came here after high school. So, my formidable years were in the Caribbean. So as a Black immigrant, I had to make a number of cultural adjustments when I came here, both academically and socially. I came from a country where I was part of the majority race. And adjusting to a country where I was now a racial minority was very difficult. When I started at the University of Kentucky in 2005, I was the only doctoral student in the program at the time who was a person of color. So it was really difficult adjusting to that. But, just even going further back, I have never had a Black professor or professor who looked like me, ever. Throughout my entire undergrad, master's, doctoral programs. So seeing people who looked like me, it was not something that happened all the time. Even as a public budgeting and finance scholar, I'm not sure if you've been to ABFM, Wendy, but when you look around, there aren't many people of color who specialize in public budgeting and finance. So that really has been what my journey has been about, being one of a few in the room. Like if I look around, I don't see many people who look like me. Fortunately, since 2005 and now, we have come a long way. There's still a lot of work to be done. If you look at our doctoral students, we have many doctoral students who come from underrepresented backgrounds, which is wonderful. When I was a PhD student, I did not see that. So there is progress, and we need to give kudos to the programs that are making an effort to make a difference.
Excellent, excellent answers, very informative. And both of you have touched on a couple of things that are going to lead into our next question. So one, not seeing people who look like you when you were studying, whether it was the numbers of students or whether it was faculty, and also not having role models or mentors to look to at that time. Malcolm Gladwell has a book called Outliers, and in it he highlights some of the most famous people we have in our society, but it's not really about them that he's celebrating. It's the people who helped them get to where they are. And the basis of the book is that none of us do these things alone. So my next question to the two of you is, has there been a person that has served as a mentor for you in your career trajectory? And if yes, who and what was their impact in your life, your profession, or career? And this is me taking moderator liberty again. How have you leveraged that, what you have received, to then reach back and help others? How have you been a mentor? Dr. Charles, we're going to start with you this time.
Okay. So for me, I did not have just one mentor. Rather, I have what I would say is a large and supportive mentoring network, and I've had that since graduate school. And I am of the belief that there's not just one person who can serve all of an individual's mentoring needs. Some people might think differently, but that's just me. I might need someone to help with my research, someone, when I'm trying to decide if this is a good job, someone if I'm having a bad day and don't know how to deal with it, how to deal with a problem with a student. So I have a lot of different people that I get different things from. So starting at the Martin School, Dwight Dennison was my advisor. And he, I will say, was one of a kind. Very soft-spoken, very intelligent. He truly cared about his students. He was someone who you could go to at any point in time with any problem. Even after being at Rutgers for a number of years, I would still get in touch with him and have a long conversation with him if there was something going on in my life. Another professor at the Martin School, J.S. Butler, he was the type of person that if you were having problems running your data analysis, he would come to your apartment and help you figure it out. We all had his phone number. We could call him at any time, Even now, I went to the University of Kentucky in 2005. I just got a paper published with him. So we are still in touch. He still helps. When I have questions about methods, I can still reach out to him. Other people. When I was at NYU during my postdoc, and this was a postdoc for minority students to kind of help minority students transition into academia. And at the time, this one person that I met, Rogan Kirsch, he was a professor and he was also one of the associate deans. He's now a provost at Wake Forest. He was an awesome mentor. And like I said, this was someone, he was not a budgeting and finance scholar. So he couldn't really help me with that type of, if I wanted to know what was the best journal to submit my work to or something like that. So he couldn't really help me with the research connection part of it. But pretty much every 2 weeks, he would knock on my door. He would check in. He would take me out to coffee to talk, give advice about the job market, academia, whatever was on my mind. And that was just who he was, because there was another young lady there at the time. She was in sociology. We were postdocs at the same time. And he would do the same thing with her. just check in and, just to see how are you doing. And sometimes that's really what we need at that time. Very kind person. And sometimes I think we forget about kindness, in academia. Academia can be a very lonely place. And yes, it's good to have people who can help you get published, but sometimes you just need someone to vent to about everything else that is going on. And so he is someone that he really had a profound impact on me, the person that he was and the way that he treated me. And I will say again, just, not to be too long, two things happened while I was at NYU and that have really stayed with me. My very first job talk I ever went on, I was at NYU and the job talk was at the Ohio State University. And when I arrived at the hotel in Ohio, there was a beautiful flower arrangement and a card wishing me good luck on my job talk at the reception desk. And it was from the dean at the time, Ellen Shaw, and also Rogan Kush. They both signed it. And that had a really profound impact on me because I have told that story to so many of my friends and colleagues, and no one has ever had someone do something like that for them. And I think these are the things that we need as young scholars coming into the field, just knowing that there are people who care, people who are kind, people who are looking out for us.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Dr. Hill, I see you smiling. I think you have some nuggets for us.
Well, I think our journeys sometimes are a little similar. There's no one person, and but I think that I would not be here if it wasn't for mentors, and I say it that way, mentors, the people that keep you in check, the people that believe in you enough to tell you the truth. And so I began, that understanding, and my first mentor was always my mother, because my mother made sure I knew the real stories. She told me the story about when she came to Newark, and she was one of the forerunners in the family. And because my mother's father was white, and all her sisters and brothers were all different complexions, my mother told me the story about when she went down to what we call the neck now to get an apartment for them. And she got the apartment, and she got this apartment. She was all excited. She took her sister back with her and her cousin with her. You know how we travel. And she said, come on, we're going to clean up. We're going to get this apartment ready and we're going to move in. And the lady came out and she said, oh, it's good to see you, Mary. How are you today? My mother said, fine. And how are you? And she said, oh, I see you have your little helpers with you. And my mother stopped and my mother said, no, this is my sister, Ollie. This is my cousin, my first cousin, Rose. And this right here is my sister, Ruby. And the lady said, oh my God, we don't have Negroes here. You can't move here. And so my mother, she kind of reminded us of that story to say, we came out of the South and we came here and we wanted to live here, but I'm determined. I'm going to live where I want to live and where I think we should live. So we may not be able to be in this house, but we still going to be in this neighborhood somewhere. And so I think about that as the first mentoring experience, because she would kind of drill that in. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do or where you can't be. And so that was the first mentoring experience. But I really have to be honest and say my mentoring experience come in so many ways. I was fortunate to be in, as I said, EOF program. And so I was so excited about EOF and what they were doing and how they was helping everyone. And I think I could help save the world, that I looked to these particularly women who were in this whole field of doing this work. And some of them, I don't know if they are, but the Maxine Summies, who was down at Douglas at a women's college in EOF. And when I became one of the youngest EOF directors in the state, they kind of took me under their wing and said, you're not going to fail at this. The Beverly Berry Bakers that came, they were in the forefront of opening these doors for women and saying, but you're not going to fail. We're going to take you under our wing and we're going to teach you. We're going to calm you down. You're not going to get too excited, even though I still do. You're going to, understand how this road and how this game works, because it becomes that sometimes. But I think that then as I became a little bit, as you go through life, you learn that your mentors come in different shapes and forms and fashions. And so while I think about those that were in the education field and helped me in that, but they were those that at home, who I call my sister friends, the Sheila Oliver, Lieutenant Governors, and the Alicia Manns, and the ones that I know that every day I could pick up that phone and cry or do whatever I need to do or vent. As Dr. Charles said, you got to have those people you could vent to. I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. You have to have those moments. And so you have those friends that are there and they're real deep. They're going to love you unconditionally, even when you act a little out of the way. But the real mentoring came somewhere to where I didn't expect it. It came from my children and the students that I encountered. And then most recently, the grandchildren. Because if you really take it and step back and listen closely, while they think that they're learning from you, you're learning from them. And if you embrace that, so I learn from my colleagues now, even though sometimes they say Dr. Hill is mentoring me, and I hear, the Sarah Penas and the Jamie Hendricks, and I hear the Yvettes and they'll tell you that, oh, I'm learning from Dr. Hill, but no, I'm learning from them every single day. They just don't know I'm sucking it up. And my children, who sometimes you have to, that they're loving you unconditionally. So they're not going to tell you anything that's not wrong because they're not trying to hurt you. They may say it the wrong way. So I have to kind of tune into that because they'll mentor and help me grow. So my mentors come in all shapes, all forms, all fashions. And most recently, it came in my new granddaughter. The other one, she always keeps me, the 13-year-old, is she 12 or 13? I have to figure that out. But the main thing, she keeps me, at a certain level. My grandson, he's calm and cool. So, he teaches me how to deal a certain way. But now that 2-month-old, she loves me regardless when she hears my voice. And so that to me is helping me and mentoring me along. And you say, how does that do it? Because it keeps me balanced. And we all need those kinds of moments and different people, and pay attention to the children, all the things you don't normally pay attention to, because all of that comes through in different ways. And I would say the one that had a profound impact in my life was Dr. Debra P Wolfe. And those of you that go back, this was an African-American woman who was the first woman on the New Jersey Higher Ed Board. And she would come to every conference that we had at EOF. And she was also a minister. So she would tell us, don't be afraid of your spiritualism. Don't be afraid to embrace it as you have to go through this journey. And she said one thing to me that I will always hold on. She said, baby, when you get into, you're talking about if you go into higher ed, you're already there. But I want you to understand your job is to open up doors for others. It's not for you to just walk through for yourself. And so I always remember that I have to remember that my job is not to be standing up and acting like I made it and I'm here. My real job, and that's why public administration is important. My real job is to open up the doors for so many others and get them all throughout this place so that they can understand what their role is and how we can really change some of the structural racisms, all those other isms, and change where we have come from to make a better world.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both. Your answers have been both informative and inspiring. The chat has been sort of blown up a little bit. People are very thrilled with listening to both of you, and comments have been made about standing on your shoulders and the impact that you have made in the lives of some of our participants. There are a couple of questions in the chat. There's one specifically I want to ask to the two of you as we come down to close to the end of our event. We want to be respectful of people's time. So I'm going to ask this question for you and ask you to both briefly answer this question. And it came in the chat. And the question is, what or how do you view the higher ed field? Do you view it as half empty and declining, or do you view it as half full and growing?
Half empty and growing. I'm going to take it the other way because I feel that since I've been in higher ed, my journey through higher ed as a student, and I stayed so connected to it. I only went out for a little bit and came right back. And so, being in it for over 30 something plus years, I would say it still is half empty. If you look at the stats across the state of New Jersey, if you look at it national, and I started with that, it's a lot of work to be done. But I think that some of the work is happening. I look at the impact that we've had in the greater Newark area. I look at how we've had impact statewide. I look at programs, and I keep coming back to Education Opportunity Fund because that was a groundbreaking area for a lot of us of color. And so when those doors were opened, we were going through those floodgates. And I just think about that so much that it really makes me understand that, yes, it was hard then. I'm just hoping now we don't go back and undo the work that we started in those 60s, 70s, and 80s, and the work and the people that laid those foundations. I hope we understand what they did to get us where we're at now. And I just continue to say that in higher ed, we have the opportunity to open those gates a little more. And when I think about Rutgers Newark, I know they're open and they're different because I look at where the spaces and places where people are at. I look at the colors of the people at Rutgers University Newark and the positions and how they're in those different positions and the difference that they're making in the lives of others. So when I think about it, I think it's on its way, but it's still half empty. It's still half empty for when you look at people of color. It is still, you still have to break down doors. You still don't have the people that are going to help you publish the way you want to publish and need to. You still don't have people walking you through that process. They're still holding back and they're still thinking that you gotta fight to get there. And so we do. Dr. Charles fought to get there where she's at, and she's competent and she's extra. In other words, we all have to be a little extra to get to where we're at so we can continue to open those doors. And that's why they love her. That's why we have the people that we have now because somebody opened those doors. So I would say we're getting there, but we're not there yet.
So, Dr. Charles, half empty and declining or half full and growing?
I would agree with Dr. Hill. So half empty and growing. I think because we are at Rutgers, especially Rutgers Newark, I think sometimes we think the rest of the country, the rest of higher ed is like this, but it's not. We still have a really long way to go. Recently, you can see the changes, but there's still problems. Like sometimes I get this feeling like, going and looking for positions that universities want diversity, but maybe they just want one person who looks like me. And so once they have that one person, it's like, we're there. And they're not going to hire too many of us at one time, So I think it's getting better, but it's important that we not let what is happening right now, become a trend that it continues. That a year from now, people are still talking about intersectionality, social equity, diversity, that a year from now, people don't move on to the next big thing. It's not fixed. We're getting there, but we're not anywhere near where we want to be.
Okay. All right. So excellent answer. So there was an either or to the question, but you all gave a third option. So half full and growing, I'll take it. It makes a lot of sense. And yes, we have a lot of work to do. And if we're standing on your shoulders, we continue to do the work that needs to be done. Lastly, there's a question that came in specifically for you, Dr. Charles, and that is, how did using your degree abroad impact your work, and how did your degree add to your work?
I'm not entirely sure I understand. Meaning when I left with my MPA, how did that impact my work?
So you said you went back to St. Lucia, correct?
Yes.
Right. So that the question, right. So how did your degree here impact your work abroad?
Well, so it was very different because many people in St. Lucia don't know what public administration is. So people had a difficult time understanding what an MPA is. You know, they'd be like, oh, do you mean an MBA? And no, it's MPA. And what I found was most people who work in the public sector have degrees in business, in finance, and economics. So it's not a degree that has really taken off. And I really would like to change that. Before COVID started, we had started a program. So myself and another faculty member at SPAA, we got a small grant from Global Affairs, and we had started this communication with the government back in St. Lucia with the hopes of introducing them to what we're doing here in public administration, but all of that has been put on hold. But to say, did it really have a big impact? Not really, because what I found was people aren't very familiar with public administration yet in that part of the world.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. We are now down to our final minutes of this event, and this has been very enlightening, very informative. I thank both you, Dr. Charles, and you, Dr. Hill, and in his absence, Dean Menifield, for the information that you have given us. For me, I would say that the takeaways are: one, education. Obviously, we all agree that that is important, and that's always been a key. Two, that degrees are important, but you're not pigeonholed into doing work specifically for that degree. You can take that knowledge and use it in as many different areas as you can fit that into and make it effective and efficient work. Thirdly, mentors are extremely important. I agree with that. I tell my mentees that if I could give them 1% of what my mentors give to me, that they would be set for life, because that's how good my mentors have been and are to me. And lastly, that we still have work to do. So by extension, you said that higher ed, we still have work to do. And so SPAA is in higher ed. So we still have work to do. So we thank you so much for your willingness to talk with us and to be open and honest with your answers, and to help us to start to frame the work that we are going to do forward. To our participants who have also been showing their gratitude to the two of you for the work that you've done, they are ever so grateful for the work tonight. And to the participants, I say thank you for spending your evening with us and helping us to start off our month in excellence. I appreciate the fact that you've allowed me to talk with you a little bit and to facilitate this. Dean Stroy, I want to hand this back off to you for final remarks, if that is okay. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I want to thank our moderator. Please give a hand clap to Wendy Nicholson for moderating a great event. And to Dr. Hill and Dr. Charles, it's so amazing to always learn something new about some powerful women in academia. To our audience and attendees this evening, thank you for supporting the work that we continue to do. Please know that we are in this together. And on behalf of Dean Charles Mannerfield, the Dean for our school, he extends his welcome and gratitude for participating with us this evening. Please continue to join us throughout the semester. Our next event is March 3rd, where you'll get a chance to talk to faculty and staff who work in SPAA, but actually have degrees from SPAA. So there seems to be a full circle journey about obtaining a degree from SPAA, to where there are about 7 of us who came back to give back to what we have learned. So on behalf of the faculty, staff, and students and alumni of the School of Public Affairs Administration, everyone have a blessed evening. Be safe. Make sure you're safe if you're out in the snow, and have a blessed evening. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, and thank